Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the newest wave of Spawn figures. This is wave 5 of McFarlane Spawn line. We have Medieval Spawn, the mega figure Monolith, and then Sinn. I got these figures from the McFarlane Toy Store, utilized the bundle discount and a coupon code, and got a pretty fair price. So let's take a look at the packaging. As you can see at the top, ages 14 plus. This is not a toy. I always think it's hilarious when McFarlane puts it on stuff. This is a toy, but maybe a badass toy. And right next to that, McFarlane Toys. Spawn, Medieval Spawn. Here he is in the package. Looks like we have some sort of axe and a sword. And then the figure himself, medieval armor, looking awesome. One side, here's Medieval Spawn posed up. Other side simply says Spawn, McFarlane Toys. At the back, here's an image of Medieval Spawn from the comics. And at the bottom, here is his barcode. Next, we have Monolith. He's a big boy. He's got the sort of Spawn logo on his chest, spikes on his wrists, etc. Mega figure is a giant figure. Monolith, ages 14 plus, not a toy again. One side, Monolith from the comics. Other side, just a Spawn. At the back, same picture of Monolith from the comics. And at the bottom, there is his barcode. Now let's take a look at Sinn. Two ends. Looks very similar to Lex Luthor in his power suit. A bunch of energy effects. Here's Sinn from the comics. Spawn. Bigger picture of Sinn. And finally, Sinn's barcode. So no further ado, let's open them up. Alright. Now that we have these figures out of the package, here they are with all their accessories laid out. This is the 5th wave of Spawn figures in McFarlane Spawn line. We have Medieval Spawn, Monolith, and then Sinn. In this video, we're going to take a look at each of the figures individually. We'll check out their accessories, height, and articulation. Then we'll compare them with a bunch of other McFarlane Spawn figures, and with a bunch of action figures from different various companies. So, I'm going to start them off with the one I'm looking forward to the most, followed by the one the least, starting with Medieval Spawn. And these are all pretty cool figures, but they're in the order from the one I was most anticipating to the one I was least anticipating, although I definitely wanted all three of them. Now before we dig into Medieval Spawn, let's check out this accessory that all three of them come with. This is a display stand. It's a typical McFarlane display stand, black perfect circle. It says Spawn on the bottom. It's got one peg with the peg holes on their feet. Very thin, very basic. So this is Medieval Spawn. His real name is Sir John of York. He was the Hellspawn for the medieval era of the 16th century England. So let's take a look at him. So the figure itself looks really cool. He's sort of in armored medieval look, hence Medieval Spawn. He's got the traditional Spawn sort of logo on him. It does seem like, I don't know, some of this armor that's painted black maybe could be painted a little bit of a better color. It kind of looks like the skin, but as you can see from the collar here, the actual armor, it's part of his sort of chainmail type suit. Mask looks really good. Green eyes. Spawn logo in that metal armored part of the face. Looks like it's a helmet on the back, but once again, it just kind of makes you think the skin color. You can even see his outfit here. Armored. He's got little skulls holding his cape. Pretty nice detail there. Skull on one shoulder pad. Spikes on the other. He's got double jointed elbows. Double jointed knees. Skulls, spikes all over him. One giant shin guard compared to a small one, just like the modern Spawn. The belt, the chains, spikes, skull. The sculpting detail is amazing on this guy. Just look at the detail everywhere. Paint job could be a little better, but it's a very nice figure, especially for the price point. And just a closer look at his face, helmet, and head sculpt. The sculpt is fantastic on this guy. Detail all over him. Now let's check out his accessories. He comes with both a sword and then sort of a mallet or sledgehammer type thing. Here's a look at his hammer. As you can see, at the top, it's got a giant spike on one side, a little spike at the top. Got the Spawn logo on the back there. Then we have this long handle, little ball at the bottom. Here's Medieval Spawn holding his hammer. He can hold it with either one hand or with two. Now to look at his sword. A large sword all done in silver color. Blade looks pretty good. It's got a little sort of engraving there. Handle, nice amount of sculpting to detail. I think it's done in one color. Could use a little bit more paint variety. The sword itself is a little bit more from the packaging. I'm going to boil up some water, dip it in there, and see if I can fix that. So I dipped the sword into some hot water. Got real loose. Then I held it straight. Poured some cold water on it. And it cooled down in a much straighter position. Here's Medieval Spawn holding a sword. He can only hold it with one hand. The articulation is just a little bit too limited for him to hold it with two hands, although the handle is definitely long enough. Now they've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories. Now let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, he's standing at about 7.7 inches tall, which can translate to about 19.5 centimeters. Now for his articulation. Starting with his head here, of course, he can rotate from side to side. He can look up, really not at all, but down a little bit. Can't tilt his head from one side to the other. Shoulders on a ball joint. Obviously these giant shoulder pads are going to obstruct somewhat, but they do go above the shoulders as well. Ball joint doesn't go up that far. Up, down, around. See the other side here. Not quite 90 degrees. He does have a butterfly joint between his shoulder and chest area. Increase the range of motion and covering that large gap. Bicep cut below that. It's about as far as it's going to go. Double jointed elbows, they go all the way in. His wrist can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. Torso, ball joint, rotate around, forward and back. Another one is waist, rotate around, forward and back. Between the two, very good range of motion in his torso area, especially considering what a big, bulky, armored figure he is. Legs, complete as the splits. Not a ball joint, McFarlane style hip joints. They can rotate a little bit there. His legs go forward, really not much at all. Double jointed knees below that. And his ankle here, forward and back. Rotate, tilt, rock, and of course, to articulation. He kind of reminds me of the Spawn from Mortal Kombat 11. This one was dubbed Male Fake Spawn. Kind of has a medieval look to him. Now let's check out Monolith. This is the mega figure in this wave. Monolith is one of the many Hellspawns seen in the Spawn comics. He first appeared as a servant of Omega Spawn. Eventually, he turned on him and became a member of the Scorched. So let's take a look. It's a Hellspawn. You can see he's got the sort of Spawn logo on him. The same weird sort of skin all over him. His face is brutal. Look at those teeth. He's got skulls all over the top of his head. He just looks like a mean motherfucker. Look at him. Giant skull on either shoulder. Spikes on his hands. This guy is brutal. See his belt. Doesn't have the traditional Spawn logo, a little bit different. Chains, pouches. Looks like single jointed elbows, single jointed knees, both. But the figure looks pretty good. Kind of light, feels like at least the torso area is definitely kind of hollow. But he looks fantastic, large, imposing, evil. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. Really well done. Nice sculpt. Nice paint job. Looks very evil. He doesn't come with any traditional accessories, just the display stand that we already looked at. But this guy doesn't need any weapons. He is a giant weapon himself. Now for his height. From bottom to the top of his head, standing at about 9.2 inches tall, which could translate to about 23 centimeters. Now for his articulation. Starting with his head here. Of course, going to rotate side to side. Up, not much. Down, good amount. Can tilt his head a little bit from side to side. Shoulders on a ball joint. Shoulder pads do a pretty nice job not getting in the way, going over his shoulders. Goes at about 90 degrees. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. There's no bicep cut. He's got a single jointed elbow. Goes in less than 90 degrees with rotation here. His wrist can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. His torso is one solid piece. He's got a bulge at his waist. Rotate around, forward and back. Legs, complete as a splits. Not a ball joint. McFarlane style hip joints. Rotation is non-existent. Legs really don't go forward very much. He's got a single jointed knee. Goes back a little bit less than 90 degrees with rotation. And then his ankle. Forward and back. Tilt. And toe articulation. Here's Monolith. Next to the previous Spawn Mega figure. This is Omega Spawn. This is who Monolith originally worked for. And now let's take a look at Sinn. I'm not really familiar with this character in the Spawn universe, but when I looked him up it said, born into the world of man as Cain, the first son, banished into the underworld after the murder of his brother Abel. Throughout history, he has been a friend, mentor, and now enemy to those that stand against the forces of hell. Now known only as Sinn, he is one of the most powerful men on the planet. He comes with 3 energy effects. Kind of reminds me of Lex Luthor in his power suit, mainly because it's an armored suit, it's green, and he's bald. So let's take a look at him. Nice to add more Spawn villains to the ranks. He's a black man, he's got a white goatee, kind of angry, teeth exposed, white eyebrows. Head sculpt is pretty good. I like the armored suit, looks cool. He's got these interesting sort of claw-like hands, metal gloves, big giant chains like McFarlane loves to draw on all of his stuff. Kind of tattered clothing and a cape behind there. Got some patches, it's beat up, frayed on the edges, looks pretty good. Looks like we have double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. It's a good looking figure, looks pretty cool. I think I can find a lot of different uses here, not simply for my Spawn collection, but more than that. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. It's good head sculpt. Just a simple human, but well done. Now for his accessories. He's got 3 energy effects. They're cast in a semi-transparent blue plastic, kind of simulating lightning. Should be able to wrap around his arms. This one is sort of like a little display base, and the other 2 will attach to his hands. Here's Sinn, utilizing all 3 of the energy effects. Got one here, sort of a diorama base, so it's coming out of the ground. It has a little peg for the peg holding his foot. And this one here looks almost like it could be a giant blade or the energy going towards somebody. And this other one here almost makes it look like it's another hand or claw around his hand. Now let's check out his height. Bottom to the top of his head, standing at about 7.2 inches tall, which can translate to about 18 centimeters. Now for his articulation. Starting with his head. Rotate side to side. A little bit hard to get to because of the armor, but not that hard. Can't look up really much at all. Down seems to be a pretty common theme with these figures. Tilt his head one side to the other. Shoulders, ball joint, goes out 90 degrees, maybe a tad more. Shoulder pad here is about as high as it's going to go. Ball joint, up, down, around. He does not have that butterfly joint. The gap is not very noticeable with the armor and everything. Bicep cut. Double jointed elbows. His wrists rotate, and it is hinged as well. Ball joint his torso, rotate around, forward and back. Another one is waist, rotate around, forward and back. Between the 2, good range of motion. Get a lot more out of the waist than the torso on this guy. Legs, would do splits, but this cloth here is obstructing the other leg. Not a ball joint. McFarlane hip joints. Forward, about that much. Back, just a little bit. Rotation, pretty much non-existent. Double jointed knees. Then his ankle here, forward and back. Rotate. Tilt rock, although not really getting to do that out of this guy. And toe articulation. Here's Sinn, next to McFarlane, Lex Luthor in power suit. You can see why I said he reminds me of Lex Luthor. Both have a green powered armor suit. They're both bald. I can see somebody making a pretty cool Sinn custom out of this Lex Luthor figure. But you don't need to anymore. McFarlane made one. Here's the 5th wave of Spawn figures. Medieval Spawn, Monolith, and Sinn. They're in the streets together in an action pose. Now let's check them out. Next to some other action figures. Starting off with some other Spawn figures. These guys are considered the 5th wave of McFarlane Spawn figures. The waves get kind of jumbled up, as there are some one-offs and exclusives along the way. Here they are, next to the 1st wave of Spawn figures. We've got the Violet or Mega figure, then Clown, then the Redeemer, and Raven Spawn. And a lot of these had variants. There's the Platinum Chase variant of Redeemer, GameStop exclusive blended up variants of Clown and Violator. And here, next to the Series 2 Spawn figures, we've got She Spawn, Soul Crusher, Cygor, Dark Redeemer, and all 3 variations of the Gunslinger Spawn, including the Target and GameStop exclusives. And now, with the 3rd wave of Spawn figures, Ninja Spawn, Haunt, Overkill, Manga Spawn, a re-release of Raven Spawn, and then the Deluxe Spawn with the Throne. Here are these guys. Next to the 4th and most recent wave of Spawn figures, we've got Plague, King Spider, Nightmare Spawn, Omega Spawn, and Salmon Twitch. Now the 5th wave's out here, I can't wait to see what's going to be in the 6th wave. Here are these figures. Next to all 3 variations of the Mandarin Spawn. He was sort of a one-off before the first wave of Spawn figures. And finally, here they are, next to all the different variations of McFarlane's Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn. They made their 2 best Spawn figures in the Mortal Kombat 11 line. They actually almost made no regular Spawn figures in their actual Spawn line, which is kind of weird. Here are all the different Spawn Mega figures. Really curious who's going to come next. Here they are, next to some older McFarlane Spawn figures. McFarlane has been making Spawn figures for a long time, but the beginning, they were smaller than 7-inch scale. They looked to be even smaller than 6-inch scale, but they were still bigger than the competition out there. And as McFarlane continued to make figures, they got bigger and the sculpts got better. The Spawn figures were 7-inch scale by the end there. Really nice sculpts, but not very good articulation. McFarlane has finally mastered both. Now let's check them out. Next is some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how they fit in both scale and style-wise, in case you know which lines you can mix them with. Since they're McFarlane toys, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect. They work way smaller. But first, let's check them out with some of the McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. Then, with some more McFarlane Toys, these are from different various video game properties. And now, next to some Jack-specific wrestling figures. And here, next to several oatmeal cream pies. And here they are, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. Then, with some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And here they are, standing with some NECA figures. Then, with some Mattel wrestling figures. And now, with some Jazzwares AEW wrestlers. And here they are, next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. Then, with some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And here, next to some Mafex figures. Then, with some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here they are, with some SH Figure Arts action figures. And finally, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, it's a pretty cool wave. I like each of the figures, and they did a good job with each one of them. But as they continue on with their Spawn wave, I'm becoming less and less attached to the characters. I'd love if they'd give something like Angela, but I know there's all kind of legal rights around characters like that. Still, these are very cool figures. I would say probably the star of the wave is going to be Medieval Spawn. Of course, Monolith is cool. He's a mega figure. He's giant, bulky. And personally, I like Sinn, mainly because he makes me think of a black Lex Luthor. If I were to rate these figures, I'd probably give Medieval Spawn an 8 out of 10, and then Monolith and Sinn both 7 out of 10s. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.